Today, our message was going to be given by our co-pastor, Roger Wetherall. Just a little, you know a lot about him, but I want to say a few things about him. When I look at this sentence, Roger, it's like, oh my gosh, where did the years go? Roger has been a member of the Family Federation for 44 years. He doesn't look like he's even 44 years old. He was matched and blessed with his dear wife, Daniela, in 1989 in Korea. He serves as the U.S. coordinator for the International Association for Peace and Economic Development, and he is also the Connecticut Executive Director of the Universal Peace Federation. In his spare time, he also is the Director and Business Analyst at Cooper Surgical, in charge of developing the customer relationship management system for the global sales team, which has taken him around the world, actually, because of his work. His sermon today has to do with the blessing, and let me just give a few points before we welcome him up. Roger says, the blessing is not a prize. It is the beginning, a commencement ceremony for your adult life. It is the point where you become responsible eternally for happiness, love, and life of another person. It is not a regular marriage. It is a spiritual and physical joining of two lineages. The entire spirit world of all our ancestors going back hundreds of generations are focused on this one point in time. It is an inflection point in the space-time continuum where two spiritual bodies combine into one, like two stars merging in a galaxy. Very poetic. Thank you. Please join us as we explore the foundations of faith and learn about how to create a happy, blessed message. Welcome up, Roger.
Thank you very much. Turn it around. So I've spared you a slideshow today, so you can just listen to me. Now, it's always, I heard some cheers back there. It's always difficult to follow the children's message. I feel like that's a hard act to follow every week, you know, so I really appreciate Hannah Beda for the effort that she put into that. It's interesting that Battle of Ridgefield that she mentioned there, the person who built our house, which is 260 years old, died in that battle. So let's give a hand to Lieutenant William Thompson. Yes, it's a very old house. So the blessing, what does it mean to you? What does it mean to me? So today I get to tell you a little bit about what I think it means to me. Well, for me personally, this last few weeks has actually been filled with many blessings. So there's a bigger term, blessing, right? What's a blessing? And then there's the specific terminology that we use, the blessing, right? So what is a blessing? Could I get a response? Everybody want to call something out? What's a blessing? Yes, over there. A gift from God. A change of blood. No, not the blessing. A blessing. That's the blessing, right? We're talking about. What's a blessing? To be alive. Yes, more generic. I'm looking for that. So I would say it's to be fortunate. I am blessed. If you say, I am blessed, I'm fortunate. I have wealth. I have a good job. I have a wonderful family, right? I have my health. I'm blessed with good health. What does it mean to be cursed? Does be fired? So in the Bible, the biblical understanding of a blessing is the impartation of something with grace, holiness, spiritual redemption, or divine will. Say that again. to be the impartation of something with grace, holiness, spiritual redemption, like salvation, or divine will, like when Jacob was blessed or Abraham was blessed, right? They were blessed with a divine providence. You will inherit blah, 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 right? In the blessing, in the original words of the Bible, we have the section that talks about the three great blessings as well. And we know that God wanted to bless mankind with these three things: to be fruitful, to multiply, to have dominion over the earth, and to inherit everything. So in our church, though, the meaning of the blessing is much more specific. And we have created a distinction between a blessing and the blessing. And I want to focus mostly on the blessing. So in a literal sense, the blessing means a binding agreement or a legal contract. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of it. In our church, the blessing is more of a covenant between a couple and God. Now, what's a covenant? A covenant, in a literal sense, means a binding agreement or a legal contract. So it's a seal between two or more parties. So in a biblical sense, the word covenant derives from the same root word meaning to cut. This means that in the culture of the Bible, covenant carried weight and was often cut or sealed with blood. So people would cut their finger or their arm and they would put their arms together, and that's how you'd seal a covenant, a blood bond. Okay? So in our church movement, the idea of the blessing is this blood covenant, and that's where we get the idea of this change of blood lineage that happens in the blessing. So the words "to be a blessed couple" carry a lot of weight. Who's a blessed couple? We got a new blessed couple over here. We got a new blessed couple over there. We'll introduce them in a little while. So do you think about those words often? What does it mean to be a blessed couple? So I'd like to talk a little bit about my own experience growing up and how I came to understand this. So I was, without this blessing, my life would have been very different. Don't you all agree, those of you who are blessed couples? So first of all, I wouldn't be in America. I'd be in Australia probably. I wouldn't be in Connecticut. I wouldn't be married to this beautiful, crazy Italian woman. My life would have been very different. Maybe a lot easier. And very boring. I recently went back to Australia and I met many of my old school friends. And we went out and we talked, and I said, "What have you been doing for the last 20, 30, 40 years? And I realized, my life has been so much more interesting than all the friends that I went to school with. I started telling them some stories, and they like, "Really?" But anyway, I started looking for a spouse when I was about 14 years old. That's when I first kind of realized that there was this other race of people called women, They were very different from me. And so I started, talking to them and exploring that relationship. And then a little later, when I was about 17 years old, I kind of had my first girlfriend. And that lasted for about 6 months. And I was exploring that relationship, and I realized at the end of that time period that actually I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to engage in this kind of relationship yet, to take responsibility for another person, and I wasn't ready to be married, that was for sure. I was too young and immature, and so we agreed to kind of separate. But then I started really searching, what does the ideal relationship mean? An ideal marriage. What is that all about? What do I want in that marriage? So I dated a few other girls, but didn't really find anything, and I was really searching inside. And then when I was 19 years old, so now you can figure out 19 plus 44, how old am I really? Okay. So I met the Unification Church, and I studied the divine principle. And when I heard that, I heard about God's ideal, that we should be married and have ideal families, and that this was the origin of what went wrong in the beginning. But I was living in a center with many single people who were living very ascetic kind of lives, and they were very separate, sisters over there and the guys over there, and we didn't touch, and we didn't spend time together alone, and we didn't go out on dates. And so I asked, well, how do you actually get married and make this relationship? And so at that time, the idea of the matching and the blessing was explained to me by the church leader. And I was so excited. I felt, yes, this is the answer to what I've been looking for, the answer to my prayer. So I knuckled down, and I went out fundraising, and I went witnessing, and I went business mission, and I did all the things in the church for about 10 years and grew and matured myself. And then when I was 28 years old, I went to Korea, and I was matched to my wife Daniela, and then 3 days later we were blessed. And I thought, yes, I got it. I won the prize. I made it. Anybody have that experience? But I was really excited because I got the most beautiful girl in the whole room. And then the real work started. So, who's raised on Disney movies? So you know how it goes in The Princess Gets this prince, they get married, and they live happily ever after. But we know that real life steps in. So, as we started growing in our relationship together, we faced many challenges. And the first 5 years particularly were extremely difficult for us, and there were many times in that period where I didn't know if we were going to make it. And sometimes I considered actually just walking away and trying again, going somewhere else. But through all of it, I had this vision of what the blessing can be. And we had a breakthrough. And then we had another breakthrough in our relationship. And we continued to develop our love and to learn how to adjust to each other and become closer. So, today I would like to share my top 5 points for the blessing. So first up, the blessing is not a prize that you win and then you can relax and you can think, oh, I'll be taken care of. So in the beginning, it's the beginning. It's a commencement ceremony. Recently, we had some graduates. My own daughter was graduated as well, and I was thinking, this is not the finish, it's actually the beginning. Commencement is to begin, right? So, as you embark upon that course in life, first up, you're no longer responsible primarily to your parents, but you are responsible to each other. It's a point where you become responsible eternally for the happiness, love, and life of another person. You're no longer an individual moving through life according to your own desires and decisions. But you need to start consulting with your spouse and communicating with them about everything. Even, how long is it going to take us to get to point B? Or which route should we take? Or what do you want for breakfast? All the little things. So important. You need to be vulnerable in your communication about your fears, your failings, your shame, your hopes and your dreams. And you need to allow your spouse into your heart without reservation, without holding anything back. Do not withhold your love. The blessing is a sacrament. Point 2. It's the culmination of all religious history. We were raised Catholic, my wife and I, and many of us in the room, so we're very familiar with the concepts of baptism and confirmation and confession, marriage and anointing. These are like the 5 major sacraments in the Catholic Church. The blessing is all of those rolled into one. It's the beginning. It's the confirmation of your faith. It's the confession of your sin and the forgiveness of your sin. It's a marriage and it's an anointing. Okay? The blessing, number 3. The blessing brings peace in the world by breaking down cultural and language barriers between nations and peoples. Now, this is perhaps more applicable to those who have been matched, especially if you've been matched to somebody from a different race or a different nation. But it's also applicable to those who, may have somebody of the same race or the same nationality. But it's not a regular marriage. It's a physical and spiritual joining together of these 2 lineages. And so the entire spiritual world of each of you is then focused on that event. So as you come together, then you have the opportunity to overcome whatever historical or racial or religious differences may have existed between you in the past, and through your unity you can resolve the issues for your ancestors and your collective responsibility. So when those 2 people come together in that relationship, God and the entire spiritual world is focused on that. Don't you feel that in the blessing ceremonies? It's not just you. You represent history. You represent yourself. And wherever you are in your blessed path at this point, you still represent those lineages and those histories. And so, in a sense, nothing new happens in the spirit world. Everything happens on earth, in the physical world first. So then, that joining together creates the foundation for the future. Number 4, the blessing helps us overcome difficulties. So because of that covenant and that commitment, which is beyond just myself and my wife having a legal contract, then we understand that there's a higher purpose in our relationship. We're not just 2 people. We're not just, when we get into a fight or an argument, we are not just equal, opinionated, strong-willed people, and whoever is the loudest gets to win. We have a third person in the relationship, in the middle, the negotiator and the peacemaker. So when things go off track. So have you ever heard this little puzzle? If I walk 1,000 miles due south, and then I walk 1,000 miles east, and then I walk 1,000 miles north, and I end up at the same spot, where am I? So you go south, east, north, and you end up at the same spot. Where am I? No, you're at the same spot. North Pole. Think about it. You're at the North Pole, you go south, you go east, you go north again, you end up at the North Pole again. So, as 2 couples, you might be separated by 1,000 miles, but if you're both working north towards God, you're going to end up at the same spot. So, When we put God in the center of our relationship, it's like that. We're walking towards the same goal. And then in doing that, God can work to bring us closer together and to resolve those difficulties and those differences. Point 5, the blessing is about love, eternal love. Not temporary love that just lasts for, a few months or a few years or, until you die. It's about building a relationship where you become one as a couple that will last into eternity. So don't just endure your marriages. Build your marriages. Grow your marriages every day. Invest in them. Invest in your conversations, in your caring. Learn how to communicate. And have fun. Who has fun in their marriage? I do. Fun is so important. You need to laugh together. You need to do things together. You need to enjoy being with each other. And the needs of each person will change over time. So where you might like to have fun, going windsurfing together in the beginning, once you get to be 40, 50 years old, you might not find so much enjoyment in that anymore. Long walks can be useful. So find things that you can continue to do together and share together. So in conclusion, don't give up. Wherever you are going in your relationship, there will be times where you face challenges and you feel like there's a brick wall in front of you and you can't go forward. In those moments, I've gotten down on my knees and I prayed desperately to God. And God has told me, don't give up. I'm there with you. If you just get past the looming mountain that's in front of you, and just keep holding on, the sun will be shining on the other side. Thank you. Please join me in prayer. Okay, everybody's bowing their head, but I want you to do something different. I want you to keep your eyes closed, and I want you to hold your arms out like this, okay? Why do we do this? And it's a little different. Sometimes you feel a little uncomfortable, but this is to receive God's blessing. God wants to bless us. Our Heavenly Parent, we invite your blessing to come on every person here in this congregation, no matter where they are in their journey of life. Some are single. Some are looking to the future for a spouse. Some have been married many years. Some are just beginning on this course. Some are widowed and moving into preparing for the next world. Wherever they are, we ask that you will bless them. Bless them with happiness, with good friends. Bless them with love. Someone who cares for them and someone that they can care for with all of their hearts and all of their being. Please be present in their lives and allow them to experience purpose, meaning, and value in every day. I report this in my name, Roger Wetherall, and the Wetherall Blessed Central family, Jew.